president's late as usual, so when he decides to speak, we will go live, but I prefer Carolyn Glick, superb columnist, Jerusalem Post. How are you, Carolyn?
I'm fine. How you doing, Mark?
All right. Now, not that I don't already know, I've been reading you, but the world here would like to know, what is your take on what's going on Egypt? I mean, this isn't exactly the American Revolution, is it?
No, it's much more like the Iranian Revolution of 1979 that brought Ayatollah Khomeini to power and ousted U.S. ally, the Shah of Iran.
And you know, Carolyn, in the Los Angeles Times here, they're reporting the Obama administration said for the first time it supports a role for groups such as the Muslim Brotherhood, as long as they swear off violence. What are they thinking?
Well, I think that what you have with the Obama administration's policy is the worst part of the Bush administration's policy towards the Arab Middle East, and with Obama's own sort of post-colonialist or anti-colonialist gloss to it, because Bush thought that it would be a great idea to have open elections in countries that knew only repression and radical Islam for generations, and that he thought that everybody, once given the right to vote, were going to become Jeffersonian Democrats. And what the Palestinians, for instance, did was elect Hamas, a totalitarian jihadist movement, to lead them. And so that's what Obama wants to do in Egypt. And then the other bad part of it is that he wants to take his own anti-colonialism and reward the worst actors in Egypt by saying, oh, yes, and we want the Muslim Brotherhood to also participate. And so, you know, it's just the worst of both worlds, and this is what now forms the basis of U.S. foreign policy towards the most important ally the United States has in the Arab world, or had in the Arab world until this evening, in the era of Obama.
You know, what's amazing to me is in the capitals of Jordan, Saudi Arabia, some of the smaller Arab states, Israel, and yes, Egypt, they are all thinking the same thing about the leadership of the United States, aren't they?
So we're all thinking that the United States has lost all credibility as an ally.
Well, I hope the thinking is that Obama has lost all credibility, because there's a lot of us here, for a lot of reasons, including this one, who hope to defeat him. I mean, we're not excited when he runs around the world apologizing for the United States and putting down...
Well, you know, I think that one of the things that's really important is to understand fully the significance of the Obama administration's support for the inclusion of the Muslim Brotherhood and the successor regime in Egypt. And I think that if a Republican candidate were to capitalize on this issue and run with it in 2012, that he could probably do a great deal of good to his own cause by explaining to the American people exactly what the Obama administration has done by effectively empowering the progenitors of al-Qaeda to lead Egypt. And I think that would be a very important contribution that a Republican candidate could make, both to his own candidacy and to the education of the American people.
What is going on in Jordan right now?
Well, in Jordan, again, this is part of a sort of desperation move on the part of another American ally and autocrat, King Abdallah. He has sacked his government and appointed a new one, because at the same time that there were massive rallies in Egypt calling for the overthrow of the United States' principal Arab ally, Hosni Mubarak, there were smaller but very intense anti-regime demonstrations in Amman, Jordan. And in an attempt to withstand the pressure and ride this rising tide of dissent in his kingdom, King Abdallah sacked his government and appointed a new one.
So he's concerned, obviously, about losing authority there. And now in Lebanon, what's happened in Lebanon?
Well, in Lebanon, you know, you had two elections in 2005 and in 2009, and in both those elections, pro-Western factions of Lebanese political society won those elections, the so-called March 14th movement, which is a pro-Western, Saudi-allied Sunni bloc of candidates led by Saad Hariri. They won both of those elections, but because Hezbollah are the men with the guns, they were able to strong-arm their way into the first government that was formed by the March 14th movement and retain or gain effective veto power over all of its decisions, and they did the same thing in the 2009 elections. And now they recently just sacked Hariri while he was visiting with Obama in the Oval Office, and forced their way into forming a new government. So Lebanon is now being led by Hezbollah, which is, of course, an Iranian proxy army that is also sponsored by Syria and is one of the most dangerous global terrorist organizations.
So this is the nature of democracy movements in the Middle East. We get repression, and we get despots, and we get terrorist organizations who do not accept minority positions and do not renounce power. So when the president says, the Muslim Brotherhood should be part of this, and or could be, and groups like this, as long as they renounce violence, well, then they have to renounce themselves.
Well, they can renounce violence, and then they get power, and then they can use violence. I mean, that's basically what people do when they don't have a problem lying. We saw this in Turkey with the Islamist party that won the elections for the first time in 2003, and then they came in and they said, oh, no, we're not for ending Turkey's self-definition as a secular republic. We uphold that. We don't have a problem with that. And then they came into office and they set about undermining the entire edifice of the secular Republic of Turkey by taking over the media, by taking over the courts, and then little by little, by taking over all other aspects of government, they took over the military, which had been the bulwark of defense of Turkish secularism. And now Turkey, without anybody having noticed, in under a decade has been transformed into an Islamic republic.
So we have Turkey, we have Egypt right now, which I think is
Turkey, of course, is a member of NATO.
Yeah, well, that becomes interesting. Egypt, which is I think is not going to turn out so well. Jordan is teetering. Lebanon has shifted.
Lebanon is gone.
Lebanon is gone. And I don't know what the hell America is.
It's quite an amazing track record for a president who's only been in office for 2 years.
Yeah, it has a special relationship with that part of the world, as I understand it. Keeps telling us he does.
He really does have a special relationship with this part of the world. The only people that he wants a relationship with are American enemies, practically. I mean, that's a slight exaggeration.
Well, the little tiny country of Israel, as powerful as she is, I mean, this has got to be frightening to Israelis.
Yeah, it's very scary. I mean, we have always understood that we haven't really even had much of a cold peace with Egypt. It's really been a cold war. But the hot wars that we've had with Egypt have been so devastating. Egypt was has been Israel's most powerful foe. The Egyptian army today, mainly thanks to their peace treaty with Israel, they've received over $50 billion in American military supplies, has made them an extraordinarily powerful military today. It's twice the size of the IDF. They have 1 million men of military age or coming of age every year in their population of 80 million. I mean, it's a very frightening prospect because it's fairly clear that as lousy as our relationship was with Egypt under Mubarak in terms of them being really the leaders of the political war against Israel diplomatically, it's going to become much worse under any successor regime, particularly now that the Obama administration has opened the door to the Muslim Brotherhood coming in.
All right, Carolyn Glick, I know it's late there. And
that's okay. It's a pleasure talking to you.
It's a great pleasure, and I appreciate all you write. It's very important. Thank you, and God bless you.
Well, thank you, and I have to tell you, I very much appreciate your friendship for the state of Israel and that of your listeners. So thank you very much. God bless you.
All right, you too. Take care. She is a top columnist for the Jerusalem Post. And let me tell you something. You can hear it in her voice. Imagine being over there, being an Israeli. Or may I say, whether you're a Jewish Israeli or a Christian Israeli. I mean, these are, I'm going to be blunt about something. I can say this because of my own religion and ethnicity. But for the life of me, I will never understand those Americans who happen to be Jewish who root for revolutions like this, without knowing the consequences. I guess they can because they're very comfortable. They're here in the United States and they're not over there. Or, on the opposite side of the political ledger, who support these left-wing politicians in our own country, who make nice with very, very nasty regimes and people. I'll just never understand it. People ask me all the time, Mark, how can you explain? I can't. But that's not exactly true either. We had Norman Podhoretz on this program, and he wrote a whole book on this. And he explained it in very simple terms. Liberalism is their religion. And by the way, it's not just Jews. Plenty of Catholics, plenty of atheists, Protestants, you name it. Liberalism is their first religion. Okay, Obama is speaking.
American people